Some guys get midlife crises. I got a wife who thinks monogamy is a type of wood. My name is Tom Grady, and I'm 40 years old, which means I'm officially too old for this shit, but too young to give up entirely. I teach shop class at Briar Ridge High School, which sounds about as exciting as it is, except when some kid nearly cuts off a finger with the bandsaw. Then it gets interesting real fast. I used to be a cop here in town, but that was before my back gave out, and before I realized I preferred building things to breaking them down. Teaching teenagers how to use power tools seemed like a natural progression from keeping drunk college kids from killing each other on Friday nights. My wife Julia works in human resources at Meridian Corp., the biggest employer in town. She's 37, still gorgeous, and has this way of making everyone in a room feel like they're the most important person there. At least, that's what I used to think. Now I realize she just makes everyone feel that way. The problem started about 6 months ago, right around the time Julia joined CrossFit. Not the exercise part. Hell, I was happy she found something she enjoyed. It was everything that came with it. The late nights. The weekend team building sessions. The way she'd come home glowing and energized, in a way I hadn't seen in years. "Tom, you should really try it," she'd say, toweling sweat from her hair. "Ryan says beginners are always welcome." Ryan Dexter. The guy who runs Briar Ridge CrossFit and calls himself a motivational speaker on Instagram. Drives a tricked-out Jeep Wrangler with more LED lights than a Christmas tree. Has about 12,000 followers who hang on his every word about crushing your limits and finding your inner warrior. I met him once at a school fundraiser. Firm handshake, bright smile, the kind of guy who calls everyone buddy and means it in the most condescending way possible. He had his arm around his wife Tanya, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. "Your wife's a natural athlete," he told me, his hand lingering on Julia's shoulder. "Real potential." Yeah, potential. The thing about being married for 15 years is you develop a sixth sense about these things. The way Julia started doing her hair differently, how she'd check her phone constantly and then flip it face down when I walked into the room, the new underwear that definitely wasn't for my benefit, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The real moment, the one that started everything, happened on a Saturday afternoon in early September. We were having a barbecue in our backyard, nothing fancy, just Julia's work friends and their husbands. I was manning the grill, listening to the women gossip over wine while their husbands talked about football and pretended to care about each other's jobs. Julia was holding court near the patio table with her best friend Mallory and a newer friend from work named Nina. They'd had a few glasses of wine and were getting loud in that way women do when they think no one's paying attention. "I'm telling you," Mallory was saying, "marriage is just a piece of paper. Real love means never having to say you're sorry." The other women laughed. Julia raised her glass. "Amen to that," she said. "Life's too short to apologize for being happy." I flipped a burger and tried to focus on not burning the meat, but my ears were tuned in now. "Speaking of happy," Nina said with a giggle, "how are those private training sessions going?" "Nina," Julia laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that said, "Keep talking." "What?" "I'm just saying, if I had a trainer who looked like that, I'd be doing a lot more cardio too." More laughter. I moved closer to the patio door, pretending to check on the potato salad inside. "He's married," Julia said, but there was something in her voice, something playful. "So are you," Mallory pointed out. "That's different. Tom and we're comfortable. We're roommates who share a mortgage and a kid." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Roommates, 15 years of marriage, and that's what I'd become to her, a roommate. "But Ryan," Julia continued, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Ryan sees me, really sees me. He pushes me to be better." "Is that what they're calling it now?" Nina giggled. "Stop it!" Julia laughed, but she didn't deny anything. "You're terrible. I'm just saying, if you're going to have a midlife crisis, at least you picked someone worth it." That's when I walked back outside, my face carefully neutral, and announced that the burgers were ready. The conversation shifted to safer topics: kids, work, the weather. But the damage was done. That night, after everyone had gone home and our daughter Emily was upstairs doing homework, I confronted Julia while she was loading the dishwasher. "So," I said, trying to keep my voice casual, "Ryan seems nice." She didn't even look up. "He is very professional." "Professional, right." I leaned against the counter. "Mallory seemed to think you two were pretty close." Now she looked at me, her expression guarded. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, just making conversation." "Well, don't." Her voice had an edge to it now. "Mallory drinks too much and talks too much. You know that." "So, there's nothing going on?" Julia slammed a plate into the dishwasher hard enough that I was surprised it didn't break. "Are you serious right now? You're going to accuse me of cheating based on drunk girl talk?" "I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm asking." "Well, stop asking. It's insulting." She finished loading the dishwasher in angry silence, then stalked upstairs without another word. I stood in the kitchen for a long time, staring at nothing and feeling like an idiot. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe I was reading too much into things. Maybe 15 years of marriage had made me suspicious of shadows. Or maybe my wife was screwing her personal trainer, and I was the only one who didn't know it yet. I decided to find out. The thing about being a former cop is you never really stop thinking like one. You notice things, patterns, inconsistencies, the way people's stories change in small ways that might not matter to anyone else but feel huge to you. Julia's stories were changing. She used to get home from CrossFit around 7:30. Now it was 8:30, sometimes 9. When I asked about it, she said they'd added a cool-down session to help with recovery. Made sense, except when I drove by the gym on my way home from school one Thursday, the parking lot was empty at 8:15. She started working late more often. "Big project," she'd say. But when I asked what kind of project, she'd get vague. "Just HR stuff. You wouldn't find it interesting." Maybe not, but I found her behavior plenty interesting. The breakthrough came on a Friday night in late September. Julia was in the shower and her phone was charging on the nightstand. She'd gotten a text and the screen lit up with a preview. "Can't wait for tomorrow's session." "Bring the resistance bands." Our resistance bands. Right. I picked up the phone. No passcode. We'd always had an open phone policy in our marriage. At least I thought we did. The text thread with R, no last name, just the initial, went back weeks. Most of it was innocent enough on the surface. Scheduling, workout tips. But there were undertones that made my stomach clench. "You're getting so much stronger. I can really see the difference." R, thanks to you, I never thought I could feel this good. J, you deserve to feel good. In every way. R, stop it, you're making me blush. J, I'd like to see that. R, I scrolled further back, my heart pounding. The messages got more explicit as they went. "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about it." J, neither can I. When can we do it again? R, soon. Tom's working late tomorrow. J, perfect. I'll bring the handcuffs. R, you're terrible. I love it. J, handcuffs. Jesus Christ. I heard the shower turn off and quickly put the phone back where I found it. When Julia came out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around her hair, I was lying in bed, pretending to read. "Good book?" she asked, rummaging through her dresser for pajamas. "Fascinating," I said, not looking up. "It's about a guy who thinks he knows his wife, but it turns out he doesn't know her at all." She paused for just a moment, then pulled out a nightgown I'd never seen before. Black silk, low cut. Not exactly her usual cotton t-shirt and shorts. "Sounds depressing," she said. "Yeah, it is." The next morning, Julia announced she was going to a women's retreat with some friends from the gym, overnight. Team building and meditation and all that new age bullshit she'd never shown any interest in before. "Sounds great," I said. "Where's it at?" "Someplace up in the mountains." I'll text you the address. She never did. That evening, after Emily went to a sleepover at her friend's house, I decided to take a drive. I told myself I was just going to get some air, maybe grab a beer at Murphy's Tavern. I definitely wasn't going to drive by the gym to see if Julia's car was there, except that's exactly what I did. Her Honda was in the parking lot, along with a familiar Jeep Wrangler. The gym was dark except for a light in what looked like an office in the back. I parked across the street and waited. At 9:30, the light went out. A few minutes later, Julia and Ryan came out the back door. Even from a distance, I could see the way he had his hand on the small of her back, the way she leaned into him. They talked for a few minutes by their cars, and then Ryan pulled her close and kissed her. Not a friendly peck. A real kiss, the kind that made it clear this wasn't their first time. I sat in my truck and watched my wife of 15 years make out with another man in a gym parking lot like a couple of teenagers. When they finally broke apart, Julia got in her car and drove home. Ryan headed in the opposite direction, probably back to his own wife. I waited until they were both gone, then drove to Murphy's and got drunk enough that I had to call an Uber home. Julia was already in bed when I got back, pretending to be asleep. I could smell her shampoo, different from the brand she usually used, probably showered at the gym or at his place. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling and planning my next move. Because here's the thing about being a cop, former or otherwise. When someone lies to you, really lies to you, you don't just get mad, you get even. And I was about to get very, very even. Sunday morning, Julia was all smiles and affection. She made pancakes, something she hadn't done in months, and asked about my weekend plans with the kind of fake interest that made my skin crawl. "How was your retreat?" I asked, cutting into my pancakes. "Amazing." So rejuvenating. We did yoga at sunrise and had these incredible conversations about finding your authentic self. Sounds deep. It really was. I feel like a new person. I'll bet you do, I thought. Emily came downstairs then, still in her pajamas from the sleepover, and the conversation shifted to safer ground. School, friends, her upcoming driver's test, normal family stuff that felt surreal given what I'd witnessed the night before. After breakfast, Julia announced she was going grocery shopping. Alone. "Just need some me time," she said, which was rich considering how much me time she'd been having lately. The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, I got to work. First, I made copies of everything. Screenshots of the text messages printed and saved to a flash drive. I'd learned a long time ago that evidence has a way of disappearing if you don't protect it. Then I called my sister Deb. "Tom? What's wrong? You sound like shit." Deb's a nurse at Briar Ridge General, which means she's seen everything and doesn't sugarcoat anything. She also never liked Julia, though she'd been polite about it for 15 years. "Can you come over? I need to talk to someone." "On my way." 20 minutes later, Deb was sitting at my kitchen table, looking at the printed text messages with the kind of clinical detachment she usually reserved for medical charts. "Well," she said finally, "she's definitely fucking him." "Thanks for the medical opinion, Doc. I'm serious, Tom. This isn't some emotional affair or midlife crisis bullshit. She's been planning this for weeks. Look at these timestamps." She was right. The messages showed a pattern of deliberate deception, coordinated schedules, alibis. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. It was calculated. "So what are you going to do?" Deb asked. "I don't know yet." Divorce, obviously. But what? I looked out the kitchen window at the yard where we'd had that barbecue just a few weeks ago, where Julia had laughed with her friends about not having to apologize for being happy. She humiliated me, Deb. In front of her friends, made me sound like some pathetic roommate she was stuck with, and then she lied to my face about it. "So you want revenge? I want justice." Deb raised an eyebrow. "There's a difference?" Maybe there wasn't. Maybe I was just pissed off and looking for a way to hurt her the way she'd hurt me. But sitting there in my kitchen, looking at evidence of my wife's betrayal, I knew I wasn't going to just file for divorce and split assets like a civilized adult. Julia wanted to play games? Fine. But she was about to learn that I'd been playing them a lot longer than she had. "What do you need from me?" Deb asked. "Nothing yet. But when this gets messy, and it's going to get messy, I might need someone who can back up my story." "You got it." After Deb left, I spent the afternoon researching Ryan Dexter's social media presence, his business license, his wife's Facebook page, which was full of carefully curated family photos that looked about as genuine as a $3 bill. I also did some digging into Julia's work schedule. Her boss at Meridian Corp was a guy named Patterson who'd been there for 20 years and had a reputation for being straight-laced. The kind of guy who wouldn't appreciate his HR manager using company time to coordinate extramarital affairs. By the time Julia got home from her grocery shopping, she'd bought about $30 worth of stuff that could have taken 20 minutes to pick up. I had the beginnings of a plan. "Good trip?" I asked, helping her carry in the bags. "Great. I ran into Ryan at the store, actually. He mentioned they're having a community fitness challenge next month. Thought we might want to sign up as a family. The balls on this woman. She was literally planning family activities with the guy she was screwing behind my back." "Sounds fun," I said. "When is it?" "Next Saturday. There's a meeting tomorrow night to go over the details." "Tomorrow night? Isn't that your book club?" She didn't even blink. "Book club got canceled. Sarah's sick." Another lie. I'd seen Sarah at the grocery store an hour ago, looking perfectly healthy. "That's too bad," I said. "What book were you guys reading?" "Oh, you know. One of those romance novels. You wouldn't like it. Romance novels. Christ." That night, after Julia went to bed early, probably tired from all her grocery shopping, I sat in my workshop in the garage and thought about what came next. I could confront her directly, but she'd just deny it. I could hire a private investigator, but I already had all the evidence I needed. I could go straight to a lawyer, but that felt too clean, too easy. Julia had made it clear that she didn't think she owed me an apology for anything. That real love meant never having to say you're sorry. Well, I was about to test that theory, because by the time I was done, she was going to be apologizing for a lot more than just cheating on me. She was going to be apologizing for ever thinking she was smart enough to play me. The meeting at Ryan's gym was exactly what I expected. A bunch of suburban warriors talking about crushing their fitness goals while drinking protein shakes that probably cost more than my lunch budget for a week. I showed up uninvited. "Tom." Ryan's smile was so bright it could have powered the LED lights on his Jeep. "Great to see you, buddy. Julia mentioned you might be interested in joining us." "Thought I'd check it out," I said, shaking his hand just a little too hard. "See what all the fuss is about." Julia looked like she'd seen a ghost. She was standing near the back of the group with Mallory and a few other women from the gym, all of them in matching workout gear that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. "This is fantastic," Ryan continued, apparently oblivious to the tension. "We're always looking for new challengers. What's your fitness background?" "Well, I used to chase down criminals for a living." "Does that count?" A few people laughed. Ryan's smile faltered just slightly. That's great, really great. So, you're law enforcement?" "Was. Now I teach high school kids how to use power tools without losing fingers. Different kind of public service." I let my eyes wander around the gym, taking in the expensive equipment, the motivational posters, the wall of photos showing Ryan with various local celebrities and politicians. "Nice place you got here," I said. "Must do pretty well for yourself." "Can't complain. We've built a real community here. People supporting each other, pushing each other to be better. It's about more than just fitness, you know? It's about finding your authentic self." Authentic self. I'd heard that phrase before, recently. "That's beautiful, man." Really? Julia's always talking about how much this place has changed her life. Now Julia was definitely looking uncomfortable. She caught my eye and mouthed, "What are you doing?" But I pretended not to see. "She's one of our success stories," Ryan said, his voice warming. "Real dedication. Real commitment to the process." "Oh, she's committed all right." The conversation continued for a few more minutes, with Ryan explaining the community fitness challenge and me asking increasingly pointed questions about his training methods and personal attention to clients. By the time I left, half the people there were looking at him sideways. But that was just the warm-up. The real fun started the next day. I'd done my homework on Ryan Dexter, and like most small-town big shots, he had some interesting vulnerabilities. His business license was up for renewal. His insurance was through a company that took a dim view of inappropriate client relationships. And his wife Tanya had her own Instagram account where she occasionally posted cryptic messages about trust and knowing your worth. So I decided to help her figure out what she was worth. The photo I'd found on Julia's phone, the one she'd sent to Ryan from what looked like a hotel room, was perfect for my purposes. Not explicit, but intimate enough that there was no mistaking what was happening. I created an anonymous email account and sent it to Tanya with a simple message. "Thought you should know what your husband does during his private training sessions." Then I sat back and waited. I didn't have to wait long. By noon the next day, Tanya had posted a series of Instagram stories that were basically a public evisceration of her husband. No names mentioned, but anyone who knew them would understand exactly what she was talking about. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Some people mistake kindness for stupidity. Cheaters never prosper. Neither do homewreckers. That last one was accompanied by a photo of the gym's front door. Within hours, the comments were pouring in. Briar Ridge is a small town, and gossip travels fast. People were putting two and two together, and they didn't like what they were getting. Julia came home from work that afternoon looking like she'd been hit by a truck. "Did you see what Tanya posted?" she asked, dropping her purse on the kitchen counter. "No, what?" She's implying that Ryan is having an affair." "No shit? With who?" Julia's face went pale. "I don't know. She didn't say." "Weird. I mean, he seems like such a stand-up guy." "Tom." "What?" "Nothing. It's just, this is going to be really bad for the gym, for everyone who trains there." "Why? If it's not true, it'll blow over. And if it is true, well, then people deserve to know what kind of guy they're giving their money to." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the wheels turning. She was starting to realize that her perfect little secret wasn't so secret anymore. "I think I'm going to skip CrossFit for a while," she said finally. "Probably a good idea. Don't want to get caught up in other people's drama." That night, Julia was on her phone constantly texting someone, probably Ryan, trying to figure out damage control. I pretended to watch TV while actually watching her, noting the way her face cycled through worry, anger, and something that looked like fear. Around 10 o'clock, she announced she was going to bed early. "Headache," she said. "Want me to get you some aspirin?" "No, I'm fine. Just need to sleep." After she went upstairs, I checked the anonymous email account I'd created. 3 new messages, all from people who'd seen Tanya's posts and had their own stories to tell about Ryan Dexter. Apparently, Julia wasn't his first private client. This was going to be even more fun than I'd thought. The beautiful thing about small-town scandals is how quickly they snowball. What started as Tanya's cryptic Instagram posts had become full-blown community theater by the end of the week. Ryan's gym was hemorrhaging members. The local newspaper, all 6 pages of it, ran a story about maintaining professional boundaries in fitness instruction that didn't mention names but didn't need to. The school board, where Ryan had been pushing to get a contract for student fitness programs, suddenly decided they needed to reassess their vendor relationships. Julia was falling apart. She'd called in sick to work twice, which she never did. She was barely eating. She jumped every time her phone rang and had started sleeping in the guest room, claiming she didn't want to keep me awake with her tossing and turning. Maybe you should talk to someone, I suggested over breakfast on Friday morning. You seem really stressed. I'm fine. Are you? Because you look like you haven't slept in days. She looked up from her coffee, and for a moment I saw something raw in her eyes. Fear, maybe, or guilt. It's just work stuff. This whole thing with Ryan and the gym is affecting everyone. People are taking sides. What sides? I thought you said you didn't know what was going on. I don't. Not really. But people are talking, and some of them train at the gym, and it's just complicated. Complicated. That was one way to put it. Well, maybe it's time to find a new gym anyway. Fresh start. She nodded but didn't say anything else. That afternoon, I got a call from Principal Gaines at the school. Tom, you got a minute? Something I need to run by you. I found him in his office looking uncomfortable. Gaines was a good guy, fair, straightforward, the kind of administrator who actually cared about the kids. But he was also a politician, and politicians hate controversy. What's up? I asked, settling into the chair across from his desk. This is awkward, but I've been getting some questions about your wife. My stomach clenched, but I kept my face neutral. What kind of questions? Well, you know there's been all this talk about Ryan Dexter and the gym situation. And some people are saying, they're saying Julia might be involved. Involved how? Gaines shifted in his chair. Tom, I like you. You're a good teacher, and the kids respect you. But if there's something going on that might reflect poorly on the school. There's nothing going on, I said firmly. Julia trains at the gym, same as half the women in town. If people want to spread gossip based on some Instagram drama, that's their business. Okay, good. I just needed to hear it from you. But as I walked back to my classroom, I realized something had shifted. The scandal wasn't just affecting Ryan and Julia anymore. It was starting to touch me, too. That evening, I made a decision. It was time to escalate. Julia was at her book club, her actual book club this time, probably trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. I used the time to do some research on Meridian Corp's employee handbook. Turns out they had very specific policies about conduct that could reflect negatively on the company's reputation. Even more interesting, they had a zero-tolerance policy for using company resources for personal business. I'd noticed Julia had been doing a lot of texting during work hours lately, and some of those text timestamps I'd seen matched up with her work schedule perfectly. So I made another anonymous call, this time to Meridian Corp's ethics hotline. I'd like to report a possible violation of the employee conduct policy, I said, using a voice recorder app to disguise my voice slightly. I have reason to believe one of your HR managers is using company time and resources to coordinate an extramarital affair. I gave them Julia's name and department, along with specific dates and times when I knew she'd been texting Ryan during work hours. I also mentioned that the affair was becoming public knowledge in the community, which could reflect poorly on the company's reputation. The whole call took less than 5 minutes. When Julia got home from book club, she seemed more relaxed than she'd been all week. How was it? I asked. Good. Really good. We're reading this great mystery novel about a woman who thinks her husband is cheating on her, but it turns out she's the one with secrets. Sounds like a page-turner. It is. The whole thing is about how we think we know the people closest to us, but we really don't know them at all. She sat down next to me on the couch, closer than she'd been in weeks. Tom, I know things have been weird lately. With all the stress at work and the drama with the gym, I feel like we've been distant. Have we? Yes. And I don't like it. We're a team, you know? We've always been a team. She put her hand on my arm, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. She had no idea what was coming. We are, I agreed. Always. I love you, she said, and I could hear the desperation in her voice. You know that, right? I know. But what I also knew was that her phone had buzzed 3 times during this conversation, and each time she'd glanced at it nervously, and that she was only being affectionate now because her world was starting to crumble and she needed an anchor. Too bad for her. I wasn't feeling particularly anchored myself. "Julia," I said, taking her hand. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you think real love means never having to say you're sorry?" She blinked, clearly not expecting the question. "What do you mean?" "It's something I heard somewhere. That if you really love someone, you don't need to apologize for being who you are." I guess it depends on the situation." "Right. Because some things you shouldn't have to apologize for, but other things." I squeezed her hand gently. "Other things deserve a real apology." She was staring at me now, and I could see the fear creeping back into her eyes. "Is there something you want to tell me, Julia?" For a moment, I thought she might actually do it. Come clean. Apologize. Give us a chance to work through this like adults. Instead, she pulled her hand away and stood up. "I'm tired," she said. "I think I'll go to bed." "Okay. Sweet dreams." As she headed upstairs, her phone buzzed again. This time, she didn't even glance at it. But I knew who it was, and I knew that by tomorrow, both of their worlds were going to get a lot more complicated, because I was just getting started. Monday morning, Julia's phone started ringing at 7:30 a.m. She was in the shower, so I answered it. Julia Grady's phone. "Oh, is Julia available? This is Patricia from Meridian Corp HR calling HR. That was never good news. She's in the shower. Can I take a message? Could you have her call me as soon as possible? It's regarding a workplace matter that needs immediate attention." "Sure thing. I'll let her know." When Julia came out of the bathroom, I was sitting on the bed holding her phone. "Patricia from HR called. Says it's urgent." The color drained from her face. "Did she say what it was about?" "Just that it was a workplace matter. Sounded pretty serious." Julia grabbed the phone and immediately called back. I couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but I could fill in the blanks from Julia's responses. "Yes, this is Julia. What kind of complaint?" "I see. No, I understand. Yes, I can be there in an hour." She hung up and sat down heavily on the bed. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Someone filed an ethics complaint against me. They're saying I used company time for personal business." "That's ridiculous." "Who would do that?" "I don't know. It was anonymous." She looked at me with suspicion. "Tom, you didn't what? File a complaint against my own wife?" "Jesus, Julia, what kind of person do you think I am?" She had the decency to look ashamed. "I'm sorry. I'm just scared. If this gets blown out of proportion, I could lose my job. Then you'd better get down there and clear it up." After she left, I called in sick to school and decided to do a little reconnaissance of my own. Ryan's gym opened at 6 a.m., but according to his social media posts, he usually didn't show up until around 9. That gave me a window. I parked across the street and waited. Sure enough, at 8:45, the Jeep Wrangler pulled into the parking lot. Ryan got out, looking like he hadn't slept much either. I gave him 10 minutes to get settled, then walked across the street and pushed through the front door. "Hey, buddy." Ryan's greeting was as enthusiastic as ever, but there were dark circles under his eyes. "Didn't expect to see you here. Thought you were going to skip the fitness challenge. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something else." "Oh yeah? What's that?" I looked around the gym. There were a few early morning regulars on the treadmills, but no one close enough to overhear. "It's about my wife." Ryan's smile faltered. "What about her?" "Well, she's been coming here a lot lately, spending a lot of time here. And I'm starting to wonder if she's getting her money's worth. I'm not sure I follow. See, the thing is, Julia's been different lately, happier, more energetic. She talks about this place all the time, about how much it's changed her life." Ryan relaxed slightly. "That's great to hear. We pride ourselves on transformation." "Right. Transformation. That's exactly what I'm talking about." I stepped closer. Because she's been transformed into someone I don't recognize. Someone who lies about where she's been and who she's been with. Now Ryan was looking nervous. Tom, I think maybe there's been some misunderstanding. Have there been? Because I've got text messages that suggest otherwise. The blood drained from his face. Text messages? Oh yeah, lots of them. Very detailed. Very explicit. I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot. This look familiar? He stared at the screen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Now, I continued, I could take these to your wife, or to the gym's insurance company, or to the local newspaper, but I thought I'd give you a chance to explain first. Tom, listen, it's not what it looks like. Really. Because it looks like you've been fucking my wife for the past 2 months. One of the women on the treadmills looked over at us. Ryan noticed and tried to steer me toward his office, but I didn't move. Is that what it looks like to you? I asked, raising my voice slightly. Because that's definitely what it looks like to me. Keep your voice down, Ryan hissed. Why? Embarrassed? You weren't embarrassed when you were texting her about handcuffs and hotel rooms. Now everyone in the gym was staring. Ryan's face was bright red. My office. Now. No. I think we're good right here. I turned to address the small crowd that had gathered. Just want everyone to know what kind of personal training this place offers. Very personal, very hands-on. Tom, please. Please what? Please don't tell people that you're a cheating piece of shit who preys on married women. Please don't mention that you've been lying to your wife while you screw around with your clients. Ryan made a grab for my phone, but I was ready for him. I stepped back and let him stumble forward, off balance. Careful there, champ. Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself. I know how important physical fitness is to your brand. By now, several people had their phones out recording the confrontation. This was going to be all over social media within the hour. You're crazy, Ryan said, trying to regain his composure. You're having some kind of breakdown. Maybe, but I'm not the one who's about to lose everything. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Ryan, you might want to check your Yelp reviews. I think they're about to get very interesting. I left him standing there in front of his clients, looking like a man who'd just realized his perfect little world was about to collapse. Which, of course, it was, because that was just the beginning. By Wednesday, the whole town was talking. The gym confrontation had been posted to every social media platform known to man, and suddenly everyone was an expert on Ryan Dexter's training methods. Julia was suspended from work pending the outcome of the ethics investigation. She spent most of her time in the guest room, crying or making frantic phone calls to lawyers. This is insane, she said when I brought her a cup of coffee Wednesday morning. People are acting like I'm some kind of criminal. Are you? She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. What? Are you a criminal? Because adultery might not be illegal anymore, but fraud is. And if you were using company time and resources to coordinate your affair, that's definitely fraud. I didn't. She started to cry again. Tom, I made a mistake. A stupid, terrible mistake. But I love you. I love our family. Do you? Yes, of course I do. Then why didn't you apologize? She blinked. What? I gave you chances, Julia. Multiple chances to come clean, to apologize, to try to work this out. But you lied to my face every single time. I was scared. Of what? Of me? Of losing your marriage? Or of losing your boyfriend? She flinched like I'd hit her. Because here's the thing, I continued. You told your friends that real love means never having to say you're sorry, that you weren't going to apologize for being happy. Well, congratulations. You got your wish. Tom, please. Please what? Please forgive you? Please pretend this never happened. Please let you keep screwing around while I play the role of the stupid husband who doesn't know what's going on. No, I ended it. I swear to God, I ended it with Ryan. When? Monday. After what happened at the gym. I told him we couldn't see each other anymore. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You ended it because you got caught, not because it was wrong, not because you felt guilty, because you got caught. She didn't deny it. That afternoon, I got a call from Sheriff Larkin, my old partner from my police days. Tom, we need to talk. What's up, Mike? Ryan Dexter filed a complaint. Says you threatened him at his gym. Did he? What kind of threat? Says you implied you were going to ruin his business and his marriage. I didn't imply anything. I told him exactly what I was going to do. There was a long pause. Tom, I know what you're going through, but you need to be careful. This thing is getting out of hand. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it's just getting started. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm not done yet. Tom. Mike, did you know that Ryan Dexter has been running unlicensed therapy sessions out of his gym? Calling himself a life coach without any certification? Did you know he's been having affairs with multiple clients, not just my wife? How do you know that? Because people talk. And when one person comes forward, others follow. It was true. The anonymous email account I'd set up had received a dozen messages from women who'd had inappropriate interactions with Ryan over the past 2 years. Some were just uncomfortable encounters, but others were full-blown affairs. What are you planning to do with that information? The right thing. I'm going to make sure the proper authorities know about it. And then I'm going to make sure everyone else knows about it too. That evening, Julia came downstairs while I was making dinner. Emily was at a friend's house, so it was just the two of us. Tom, we need to talk. Okay. I know you're angry. I know you have every right to be angry, but this has gone far enough. I kept stirring the pasta sauce. Has it? Yes. You've made your point. Everyone knows about the affair. My career is probably over. Ryan's business is ruined. Isn't that enough? Is it? What do you want from me? What do I have to do to make this stop? I turned to look at her. She was standing in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. I want you to apologize. I'm sorry. I've said I'm sorry 100 times. No, you've said you made a mistake. You've said you were scared. You've said you love me, but you haven't actually apologized for what you did. What's the difference? The difference is that an apology acknowledges harm. It takes responsibility. It doesn't make excuses or try to minimize the damage. She was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry I hurt you, she said finally. Are you sorry you cheated on me? Yes. Are you sorry you lied to me? Yes. Are you sorry you humiliated me in front of your friends? Her voice was barely a whisper. Yes. Are you sorry you made me feel like a fool in my own marriage? Yes. I turned off the stove and faced her completely. Now, I said. Was that so hard? She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. The problem is, Julia, it's too late. You had months to apologize. You had dozens of opportunities to come clean, but you chose to lie instead. You chose to keep screwing around instead. You chose to make me look like an idiot instead. So what happens now? Now? Now you get to live with the consequences of your choices, just like I've had to live with them. Are you divorcing me? Probably. But first, I'm going to make sure this story gets told completely. All of it. Because you're not the only victim here, Julia, and Ryan's not the only predator. Her face went pale. What do you mean? I mean there are other women, other marriages he's destroyed, other families that deserve to know the truth. Tom, please don't. Don't what? Don't tell the truth? Don't hold people accountable for their actions? Don't make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else? I walked past her toward the stairs. You wanted to know what real love means, Julia. Real love means protecting people from predators, even when those predators are fucking your wife. The next morning, I called the local newspaper, the state licensing board, and 3 different insurance companies. By Friday, Ryan Dexter's gym was closed permanently, and he was facing multiple lawsuits. Julia moved in with her sister, and I finally got a good night's sleep.